The story of the 98th Paratrooper Reserve Battalion on the Golan Heights during the 1973 Yom Kippur War is very well documented. Here they are under intense Syrian bombardment. This is just as they're about to land from the helicopter, bringing them to the battle to regain the Harmon outpost. And here is a briefing from the commander before one of their endless battles. All this thanks to one man and one camera.
I
can't see through the lenses anymore. It's a camera from the 1940s. It still works.
Yechezkel was already a war hero in 1973. His experiences in the years prior to the war included many successful interactions with the enemy, but nothing prepared him for what he saw and eventually chose not to film in the Yom Kippur War.
I took hundreds of pictures in this war. But when we were ascending to the Hermon, I saw about 20 of our soldiers dead. It was a shock. One of the soldiers had a paramedic on top of him. The paramedic had his kit in his hand, but was also dead. I couldn't take those pictures.
Yechezkel was the unofficial cameraman of the 98th Battalion. Yankale was the paramedic, always with a stretcher on his back. 50 years later, he looks back at this peaceful valley and remembers how different it was back then and how mistaken he was about the coming future.
When we came to the Yom Kippur War, we thought it would take us 2 days to defeat the Syrians. If we needed 6 days to conquer the Golan Heights and Sinai and Jerusalem and the West Bank, so we thought this would be over in 2 days.
It was not only him. 6 years after the heroic victory in 1967, too many people believed the Arab armies would not dare to go to war against the IDF, but they did.
The Syrians were strong, very strong. They came with many tanks. It was difficult for us to see so many of our tanks simply gone.
Hundreds of Syrian tanks rolled into the Golan Heights. The small Israeli force, in a brave battle, was able to stop them in most of the places, but in the southern Golan Heights, they did go through. Distances here are short. Roughly 20 miles separate the Israel-Syria border from some major population centers in northern Israel.
We felt as if we're going to save our country. We knew that we had to stop them because there's no one behind us.
Fortunately, the Syrians decided to stop. Apparently, Israel was not the only one to be surprised by the way this war began.
They thought it was a setup. They thought that there's no way they're facing the best army in the world and are able to break through and reach the Sea of Galilee.
The IDF regained the entire area and, in counteroffensive, even more territory, eventually finding itself just 40 kilometers from the Syrian capital Damascus. The Yom Kippur War may have ended in late October, but for the 98th Battalion it continued for a long time after that as cross-border fire continued.
We stayed at the front for another 6 months. We were discharged, and 3 weeks later, we were called for reserve duty once again, because there were incidents with the Syrians.
My brother-in-law, who was a prisoner of war in Syria, returned home before me. I needed to ask for a day off from my reserve duty to come and see him at the airport.
Only months later, they had the chance to rest and reflect.
We won the Yom Kippur War, but we lost 2,500 soldiers. It's a very big number for us. Every time we meet, we speak about the war, what we went through. That created a bond between us for our entire lives.
Those meetings take place every year on Independence Day. The day before that, on Memorial Day, they visit their friends who have not been able to make their meetings, a somber reminder of the heavy price paid by the 98th Battalion.